All right, we are live and in the building or in your home or on your screen at your job, one of those two. Either way, my name is Miles David, and this is another installment of Tuned Into Tennis. In this particular series, we'll be talking about all things Serena Williams and her ESPN docu-series called In the Arena, Serena Williams. We have talked about episode 1 and episode 2 previously. If you have not seen that conversation, it is on my YouTube channel. And if you're not a subscriber of the Tuned Into Tennis YouTube page, make sure you do that. Make sure you share this video and make sure you give it a thumbs up so the YouTube algorithm knows that you like it. And I know that you like it. And we all like tennis and are tuned in together. But with all of that, monotonous stuff out of the way, we're going to be talking about episode 3 of In the Arena, Serena Williams. And when I say we, I will be joined again by my good friend Miguel and also another special guest that is joining us today who's a tennis fan and Serena fan. I stopped right now because I had to process if this new guest is either more of a Venus fan or a Serena fan. I think I can see him in the background, so I think he knows the answer to this. But either way, we're going to be focused on the Williams sisters and Serena Williams. So let me bring on Miguel, co-host, to the stage and see how he's feeling today. Miguel, my guy, how are you?
I've been sick for the last couple of days, but I'm good.
Why you had to bring us down like that?
Oh, hey, we up. I'm good.
You taking your emergency?
I don't take that stuff. I'm not an anti-vaxxer like Novak, but
brother,
you didn't all day.
Wait, a call. This is going to be foreshadowing to something we're going to talk about in this episode 3. You didn't find any essential oils and get busy under the hot pot?
Not at all.
Dang, no. Something got to shake. Well, I do hope you feel better. And everybody that's watching or listening right now, make sure y'all send some love to Miguel to feel better, because we need you for the next 5 episodes we got left for this series.
Is it 8 episodes?
Yeah, I think it's 8. It's 8.
I feel like it was 10. But I felt the same thing about House of the Dragon.
8,
so, yeah.
8 is kind of a random number. I would have preferred 10, especially knowing how long Serena Williams' career is. But, contracts and Disney and all that stuff, the big wigs, they make all the moves happen. So I guess 8 is what they got and what they got to work with. So,
yeah.
Here we are. All right. You think it's time to introduce our special guest for episode 3 recap and highlight?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, let's add to the stage fellow tennis fan, somebody I met at Serena Williams' last tournament, actually, the U.S. Open 2022, Mr. Ty of When Ty Talks fame on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. What's up?
Wait. What? Where were you?
Where were who?
Where were y'all at?
Me and Ty met at Louis Armstrong.
I didn't see either one of y'all. That's crazy.
You were at 2022 U.S. Open, Miguel?
I was there. Y'all came after me. That's what it was. I came there.
I was there for the whole first and second round.
So we had to be, because we didn't know when Serena was gonna get a win or a loss. We had to be.
I was there day 1. I was there day 1 and day 2.
Gotcha. I came after she had already won 2 rounds, so that's why we missed each other. Yeah, I saw her. I saw her lose to Thou Who Shall Not Be Named. But I was in the building, so
the one that Coco beat the other day. Yeah.
Yes.
So was it that I left New York, or because you came, Miles, that she lost?
Because I don't want to be the bearer of that and hold the burden. I'm going to put it on the fact that you left, which stopped her momentum. Hence, why she lost in the 3rd round of that U.S. Open. I'm gonna blame it on you.
That's all issue to blame. This is crazy.
Well, somebody got to be blamed, because she normally would have never lost that match, but here we are.
Losing to Aya Tomljanovic. My God.
Well, that's not why we're here today. I'm sure the ESPN Plus series will get into that match and the whole mind frame of Serena as she chose to evolve from tennis. But as it stands in episode 3, we are in one of the low points of Serena's career. Eventually, all things come together, and even the greatest of champions have low moments. But this episode kind of is premised around Serena having to dig out and through one of the lowest moments of her career. So it starts about roughly end of 2003 and ends at the beginning of 2007. So we have a lot to cover because a lot of things happened in Serena's life during that phase. But before we get into it, so far, I think I'm going to shoot this question to you, Ty, because you're the guest on today's episode. So far in the series, episode 1, 2, and 3, what has been your favorite Serena memory that the documentary has showcased so far? Something that you may have either forgotten or you always knew, but kind of just was brightened up because the documentary shared a light on it.
Yeah, I would say I've been thankful for this series because as a heavy fan, I feel like a lot of times when they do stuff, it's like I don't never learn anything new, but I have learned a lot of new stuff with just in these first 3 episodes. And by far the favorite thing has been her asking Hingis, "Are you sure?" When Hingis said she wanted to receive first. My respect for Serena has went to a totally different level just hearing that she really said that.
And was a whole teenager.
17 years old.
Playing her first Grand Slam final, the world number
Right.
1 or something close to it, and
And
asking her if she's
tough
doing
matches with this
yeah.
lady.
Yeah, that's iconic. That's part of the reason why she deserves the whole ESPN Plus original series.
Exactly.
That's for sure. Then I'll shoot it over to you, Miguel. What has been your favorite Serena Williams memory or moment so far that's been showcased in the documentary?
Since I would probably say when she was talking about how she couldn't look at Venus. It was just, I think the dynamic of just like playing your sibling and your best friend, it's just beautiful to listen to how she was able to get through that, because I just don't think I would be able to do that with my brother or my best friend. Like, especially the amount of times that they had to play each other. Like, I don't know if that's something I'd be able to stomach. So
quite a few, and stomached it she did, because she is Serena Williams. Okay, y'all ready to dive into episode 3?
What's your favorite?
Oh, actually, I think my favorite came from this. So far, my favorite came from this episode, and it actually happened early on in episode 3 when she said she had just won Wimbledon, and I think she said she was in LA, and she'll never forget what song she was partying to in the club. She said it was "To the Window." First of all, "To the Window, to the Wall" by the Yin Yang Twins. I didn't know that came out in 2003. Like I'm a person of a particular age, but that was out in 2003.
Oh,
definitely, because I was in middle school.
As someone from Atlanta, that was the prime of like crunk era.
Yeah.
So this was what Lil Jon and East Side Boys. I think that was their 3rd album.
They had 3.
Absolutely.
Who knew?
Yo, hey, if you need anybody that can take you back to that era, it's me.
I did love the lean with it, rock with it, southern hip hop era.
I'm talking like
Oh,
crunk
That's
era.
a little later.
Throwing chairs at each other, like that era. Yeah.
Oh, so like Snap Your Fingers. Oh, I'm still in the wrong era. Never mind.
That's still the Snap era. I'm talking about the crunk era. I'm talking Lil Jon and Style Boys, like Trill Hill.
Okay, we get into the some cut era. Okay, got you. Well, apparently Serena liked it. Serena loved it because she said she'll never forget when that song came on and she got real low, real low, and ended up hearing something pop in her knee, and that was the beginning of her needing her first major surgery to her knee. And I identify with it because I've also got in trouble or had like malfunctions in my life. Not necessarily dancing to the East Side Boys or the Yin Yang Twins, whoever it was, but you know, we've all been there. At least I know I've been there doing something that was fun. Ended up like being like, woo, either I'm getting old or I pulled something or something went awry. I didn't necessarily need surgery for it, but evidently she did. So yeah, I always knew that she had surgery post Wimbledon 2003, I didn't know it's because she was getting crunk in the club to the Yin Yang twins.
That's again those little stories that give you context, because that's something, you know, Kornheiser and all of them on ESPN will just be like, oh, she's out of shape, she's not doing this, she's not doing that. It's something as simple as I'm in the club having fun with my friends, and boom, I tear my, you know, I rip
Can
something.
you imagine? Can you imagine getting your life as like the number one paid athlete, having won every single big tournament there is in the past 2 years, and you do, and twerking wasn't even a big thing down there. She probably really was just like bending her knees. She injured herself.
Back then it was.
Twerking was big in 2003.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Miles, I'm gonna have to see the playlist, man.
I was 10. I was 10 in 2003. I was turning 10. So you're not there. You weren't. I mean, you were like, wait, it's 13, like beginning high school, right? No, or
like
ending
1 year from high school.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't.
A clubs, we had all that stuff. Yeah,
I wasn't there yet. I was in my That's So Raven era. Okay, so hey,
back then we were like riding around the skater, like we were rolling around the skating rink and all that stuff like that. Golden Glide, Cascade, all that stuff like that.
Oh, you must be from Atlanta. Okay,
yeah. I was just about to say Miguel is Atlanta, up, down, and around. That's crazy.
Yeah. When you said Cascade,
yep. Cascade is definitely the one. By the way, if you are watching this live on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, please feel free to drop a comment or post a question that you'd like to pose to us in the chat. We'd love to answer it and love to engage with you while we walk down memory lane with Serena and in the arena. Okay. Anything else y'all want to say before we start flowing through the episode highlights?
There was something I can't remember though. If it comes back to me,
we'll probably circle back to it. Okay. Episode 3, titled Point of No Return, starts off with the dynamic of Serena and her 4 other sisters, the oldest being Yetundi, then Isha, then Lindrea, aka Lynn, then Venus, then Serena coming up the rear being the baby sister. I really loved some of the footage that, like Ty, you said earlier, a lot of these documentaries and stuff have shown stuff that as major fans we kind of already knew. I don't think I had ever seen a clip of an interview where it was just Lynn and Isha being asked about Venus and Serena. So for that to kind of happen in the first couple moments of the episode, really kind of, I was already up and alert, but it really opened my eyes to just how in a way, how high the stakes were for Venus and Serena to kind of make it, but also how much of their family was intertwined into what they were doing. So the stakes were high, yes, but as they said, tennis was just kind of a part of their livelihood. You know, how did you think about that, Ty?
I had never seen an interview of them like by themselves before, but I definitely had knew that it was like a family thing. And what I feel like I had heard before is that Isha was actually really good, and that maybe she had like some back problems and stuff. So the girl's lucky, I think, because Isha wasn't on the tour with them, because I feel like I heard them say that she was actually really good playing. So
I wonder if she had a good backhand or forehand, or if her serve was like the part of her game that shined the most.
The original Taylor Townsend. Hey, I want to say something, man. Can we talk about how good they all look? Like
the sisters?
Yes.
The picture that they referenced when Serena was like naming them, they all look amazing because Oracene, Serena's mom, is in the middle. It was the all white picture. You know, black people love all white. I don't know. We look good in all colors, but particularly all white.
Not partying all white.
They look great in that picture. But the actual interviews, how good Isha and Lynn looked. Like, yeah, I mean, they say black don't crack, but it was evident that all of them just have taken care of themselves and are still as close as what those throwback pictures and throwback moments kind of infer. Like, I love the fact that, you know, there is, well, besides the fact that Venus wasn't in this episode at all. I would have liked to hear some of her thoughts, but I guess for context of the series, they wanted to hear from people that weren't literally Serena's opponents, but to get the vibe that all five of them at the time really had each other's backs and was, them against the world, as they said. That was really heartwarming and kind of what you want to see from a big family,
Yeah, that was something I actually took note of very quickly while watching the episode. Because I believe in the first two episodes, the only interviews were Serena and Venus, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
particularly the stuff that they was talking about in this episode, you would think if it's like the dynamic of the tour when they came on, and then them losing their sister, like Venus' voice, right? But I think to me, it just felt like the creators behind the documentary was like, okay, we have respected and honored Venus and her paving the path for Serena, but at the end of the day, this is Serena's story. So bringing in Isha and Lynn seemed like it just creatively was the right choice for them.
I would have went with that behind the scenes. Would you say, Miguel?
So I was wondering if we'll see Aura seen at some point, but probably not.
She's probably over this kind of stuff.
She's like, Lord, how many more times do I want to put me in front of a mic? But but even mentioning Aura scene, I'm glad you did, Miguel. Some of the throwback footage that they've included, I've never seen or heard. Like even when they were talking about the dynamic of how it was the Williams family against the whole tour, because at the time in the early 90s or kind of mid 90s, tennis was not warm or receptive to two black girls coming in having all this hype. We'll get into the weeds of what was actually said. But Oracene alluded to the fact that that's kind of the environment that she instilled in her children and what she felt growing up. She didn't have a lot of kids, but the sisters that she had, like outside of that, there was really nobody else, and those were her rocks. So to kind of see that play out in an environment where, let's be honest, like tennis can be a family sport, but even in the time that the Williams sisters were coming up, we saw some very strange dynamics between like mom and child or father and child. And for them to kind of really band together when people were hating on them and throwing stones or hiding their hands, whatever, that was just, that's part of the reason why we got so much strength out of Venus and ultimately Serena in their careers. They had no choice.
I think it's more inclusive now, as far as like camaraderie on the tour.
Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps, because Emma Navarro showed a little bit of a different side today. But I think compared to back then, like even when they were showing them just kind of like walking by themselves, and you could even tell if you go back and watch some of those interviews with like Lindsay Davenport, I'm sure, the stuff that Hingis had to say, Maresmo and all of them at that time, you could tell they were literally the black sheep on the tour. And none of the rest of the girls really wanted to have anything to do with them, which to me is crazy. But I think back then it was a lot more cold and racist. But yeah.
I mean, literally racist, which segues into a whole portion. I mean, it wasn't that long, but I guess if you are affected, you're affected. So that portion of the Sports Center telecast they flash back to where Hingis was quoted as saying that Venus and Serena are always going to, I'm paraphrasing here, but always going to excel because they can fall back on the racism card and they get more advantages because they are black. I'm glad. This was an overarching feeling I had throughout watching the episode. I'm glad I became a fan of tennis and Serena when I did, because I missed all of that. And I don't have sometimes when people that like come into the Tuned into Tennis Twitter spaces or just kind of, find themselves finding me and us talking about tennis using the hashtag Tuned into Tennis, sometimes their anger for people like Martina Hingis and Jennifer Capriati to me seems a little aggressive, but I wasn't a fan the way I am now back in 99, 2000, 2002. And I can only imagine if I had lived through Hingis saying some of that stuff in real time, I probably want to square up with her too.
Well, I'll say this. I think the introduction of social media and then the progress that we've made through the years have created a environment where a lot of these media members feel like they can kind of like erase a lot of the stuff that they've said because they know if they would have said the things that they said back then now, the reaction would be completely different. It would be more polarizing.
It could hit your pockets too.
It would be more polarizing. Yeah, it would hit not just the journalists' pockets, it would hit the network's pockets. Like the reaction would be a lot louder because now you can actually see how black people are reacting to this. You can actually see how people that aren't black but still understand how problematic whatever is being said is impacting or whatever these people are saying or the reaction is. And that's why I say what I said about Kornheiser and Wilbon and a lot of people at ESPN that I personally detest because I know the things that they've said, not just about Venus and Serena, but other athletes. And it's hard for me to listen to them now because I know the things that they said back then. And they can get like perfect example. Mike Wilbon, one of the ones who's on that show PTI that was calling Serena fat and all that stuff like that. There was a football player named Sean Taylor that died. Mike Wilbon got on there the same day. Him and Colin Cowherd both got up there and said that Sean Taylor essentially brought his own death brought on his own death. The way he lived brought about his own death. This man was at his house asleep with his fiance and child. Somebody broke into his house and killed him.
Yeah, you don't bring that on to yourself.
So
really.
then somebody asked Mike Wilbon years later, does he still stand on that? And essentially he said yes, because he tried to justify it. So again, it's a lot of those dudes and women that still have jobs at ESPN, FS1, and all these other networks that I just can't respect because it's a lot of stuff they said and still say to this day that is very much problematic, but they got away with it and they were able to erase it in their mind because there was no social media back then. There was no consequences for the things that they said. So,
well, I'm glad Serena's bringing up the receipts. Literally, I wonder how much she had to like dig into the Disney or archives to find those ESPN Sports Center headlines and receipts because they're quite a lot. They're quite well. You find them on YouTube. They be like 240p. They're not 1080p crystal like they got in the arena ESPN version. So she found that stuff and like all the remarks from Chris Fowler and Mary Carrillo throughout the years. They dropped in this series, particularly this episode. They're definitely dropped in there. I know, Ty. I know you remember the Chris Fowler and Mary Carrillo ones. I know you remember a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, even Mary Jo Fernandez, some of the stuff she was saying, you could have like side out like, ooh, this. You know, they have totally changed their tune, and I feel like Serena made them do it, right? Like you can't after she just produced that amount of greatness in her career. I feel like as I was watching the episode, I was like, Tracy Austin, she seemed like she always been a real one. Her, and I said, that damn Dick Enberg, I think he really love him for Venus and Serena, because he ain't play that miss either. But
man, in my notes, Ty, I swear, when we jumping the gun a little bit here, but it's fine. We shooting it. When they cut to the clip of old school USA Network, which Tracy Austin used to be on almost every night covering the US Open, and said that Serena and Venus don't get enough credit for how they have pushed past the death of their sister, Yetundi, battling the grief and still coming out here and play professional tennis and win. I was like, wow, that's 20. That was literally US Open 2024 will make 20 years since then.
Yeah.
Everybody in that moment, if I go back to like how Serena and Venus were being talked about, Tracy Austin's opinions and voices and her statements definitely stick out for the good because everybody else was not saying that. Everybody else's tone was that Serena is unfocused, she's unfit, she cares more about the cameras in her reality television show and designing and stuff like that. But Tracy was like, y'all know her sister passed like a year ago, almost a year ago to this day, and she's out here at one of the biggest tennis tournaments in the world and winning and contending for this major. Like, let's put some respect on her name. And I appreciate Tracy for that. Tracy is a real one. She's a real one amidst some shaky ones.
And that's my problem.
I'm sorry.
And that's my problem with the media.
Yeah.
They never provide context. They don't care about context. Literally, her sister just died. She took what, 6 months off?
She said in the series that she turned a injury,
12
a 12-month injury into basically a 6-month injury. And I mean, literally, they kind of showed a visual of it going back to her getting low in the club. Her quad muscle detached from where it should be in her knee. Like, that is something that's serious. She had to have surgery, and she did that post Wimbledon. And we know from, looking back at her history of her matches, she was back on court in Miami of 2004, which is like March of 2004. That's not and won it. That's not a huge chunk of time at all.
And even if you want to look at that run she made when she came back, and I love how they showed it. The tone of the media round 1 versus the tone of the media when she actually won.
She said it too. She addressed it
when she came back in Australia in episode 2. Was that Australia or was that Wimbledon?
Came back from what?
I think that was when she came back from that 6-month injury. When she came back and they were doubting her. Oh, she can't get this done. She's not going to be able to do this. She's probably still rusty because she struggled in that first match, and then pretty much ran through the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, they didn't like. I don't have a problem with the series. I actually found myself clapping after this episode in my room by myself. There are, and I guess we have this lens. I know, Miguel, you consider yourself more of a casual tennis fan. Ty, me and you've been in the trenches on tennis Twitter for a while now. There are some moments that I feel like are pivotal that they've kind of skirted past, and we'll talk about this when we wrap the show up. But they did kind of scoot past 2004. Like that Tracy Austin moment I was talking about just now was in 2004, but going back just a second, hopping back, something they definitely didn't scoot over was how impactful their oldest sister, Serena's oldest sister, Yetunde, was to their existence, and how much of a hurdle it was emotionally, mentally to get over once she unfortunately passed. And not just, past natural causes. She was murdered back, in California through I mean, knowing what I know now, it was a case of mistaken identity. She was with her boyfriend at the time, I think Serena said, and she just was in a car that got sprayed with bullets, and she was killed. She was 31 when that happened. And I'm, as somebody that turned 31 this month in July, I was like, wow, like that I guess because hearing it adds context. I never thought about how old Yetunde was at the time, but like, if Yetunde's 31 and Serena's the baby, Serena was 20 something, having to deal with her oldest sister being murdered like that. And she said that happening off the heels or somewhere in the middle of taking that 6-month injury was a miracle because of how much time she got to spend before the unfortunate incident happened. And seeing them seeing the series walk through that, especially including the other two sisters that were impacted by it, Lynn and Isha. It was moving. It was moving. I'm interested, Ty. How do you feel about that? How did you process that?
Yeah, I think I figured this episode was gonna be a lot like emotionally, just because of the language warning that they gave at the beginning of it. Because the other 2 episodes definitely didn't have anything like that. But I think being able to hear, like, really what Serena said, how her injury was a blessing in disguise because it allowed her to have that time with her sister that she probably wouldn't have had because she would have been traveling and playing and stuff like that. And so I think it's always, kind of interesting how things work out that way when you get to have that time when you least expect it. So yeah, I think it was a very emotional episode. I think all of that, I feel like they talked about all of that in like 15-20 minutes of the episode, and you still got 30 minutes left, and I was like, whoa, this has been a heavy episode already.
Miguel, how did you First of all, like I know you said you were you watching the Williams sisters back in 03?
03 vaguely.
So you don't really remember being in the trenches of when that happened. How did you kind of process them watching them process that in the series?
So I remember it as I remember the story, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in the news, hey, her sister got shot, and then you know she talked about taking a break after, or you know she was contemplating taking a break after, and I just think stuff like that needs to be, again, like I said last week, certain things like that needs to be taken into consideration when we're actually taking deep dives into these athletes, because you don't know the effect that you can have on somebody when you're speaking on them, without providing full context of what they're dealing with. And that's why I said last week, I'm one of those people, and I actually had a conversation with somebody when I went to the Atlanta Open this past weekend. I was like, I need to tell, if I'm going through something, I'm going to let you know, because I'm not about, especially if I'm an athlete, I'm not about to have you out here running with all these narratives just because you don't know what's going on. So you have to print something. So you just got to create whatever Disney story you can in your head.
You printing about the fact that like I'm losing more than I have, but completely not even mentioning the fact that I lost a sibling. You know.
Thank you, and that's what it is. It's just like when she came back from having the baby. And even if you want to talk about moms on the tour, like, do these media members not understand the changes in your body when you have a child?
I don't know about that one, Miguel, because the WTA sure makes sure that we know that moms are on the mission.
I'm talking about from the perspective of the mass media.
Got you, like non niche tennis people. Okay, fair.
Look how these people talk about Naomi Osaka or Serena when she tried to come back. Like it's even before Naomi had the baby, the way they talked about her leading up into that French Open. Like,
yeah, when she was clearly going through something. Yeah.
Thank you. And I told people that documentary they did on her on Netflix, it scared the shit out of me, because I
actually haven't watched it.
It's not. I don't want to like down Naomi Osaka, and I think this is a reflection of the people that created it more so than Naomi herself. It wasn't that interesting. Naomi is interesting, but the series itself wasn't that interesting to me, and I kind of forget that it even happened sometimes. So we'll circle back to that. I think we're gonna give Miguel a quick second to get his internet together, because he is frozen, but things happen and we keep pushing. Ty, can you still hear me and see me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. Okay,
cool. Something that we haven't discussed before we move forward, R.I.P. to Yetunde. I'm sure that she is still missed by everybody that was lucky enough to have her in their lives. But you know who else was lucky to be a part of the Williams sister crew that was mentioned and interviewed in this episode? Somebody who I didn't know would be I for some reason I didn't factor this person into the series at all, but was very happy when she popped up on my screen. Miss Jill Smaller, aka low-key friend to the show, Jill Smaller. Ty, I don't know if you were on Clubhouse back in the day when Jill used to kind of like low-key be listening to the tunes in the tennis spaces. I don't think she ever hopped up on stage, but she used to be in the chat and was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this space is low-key dedicated to Serena."
No, I don't think I was hopping on then, because I don't even think I had Clubhouse at the beginning. But I did, during the pandemic, they were doing like Zoom calls and stuff. Some people were doing like, and so I did see her a couple of times on there. But yeah, I was not expecting Jill to show up in here either. And I did not know Jill played.
I think she played collegiately and like a little bit on the tour. It didn't really like pop off for her, like at a very elite level. But yeah, she knew what was up with tennis, and she knew what was up with what she saw from the Williams sisters, because she said point blank one of the reasons that she decided to really lean in to being Serena's PR person. Agent, sorry. She really had never really done somebody of Serena's caliber at all and was kind of new to it, but she saw the genuine camaraderie and like we got your back in this household regardless of anything they saying about you outside of this in tennis and in the media. We got your back. And I think that really, she said it, that really sealed the deal for her to see that Serena wasn't alone in this journey, nor was Venus, but Serena, that sparked the beginning of literally still a relationship, because I don't think Serena's had any other agent besides Joe Smaller since then,
and
which is crazy.
Yeah, and it also just speaks to them like not doing stuff like not doing the norm or following what the specific rules are. Because at that time, look how big Serena and Venus and Serena already were, and they still took a chance on somebody who hadn't had a lot of clients before. So yeah,
I appreciate Jill, man. Jill, if you ever come across this, I appreciate you so much, man. Not only because you padded Serena's pockets or helped to pad Serena's pockets, but like a agent can pretty much just do their job and get paid handsomely for it, especially if their charge is doing the things that Serena did. But it feels like, and it is, she was much more in Serena's corner than just, helping her sign contracts and do things of that nature. So I was pleasantly surprised to see Jill in that interview, and some of the stuff she said was like, just real, just real, which echoes I don't know her as a person, but echoes some of the stuff I got like a little bit introduced to when she would pop up in the space and or pop up in the Clubhouse rooms, I should say. Shout out to Clubhouse. I know Clubhouse is not what it used to be in the pandemic.
It's dying slowly.
Yeah, because it hit its peak when everybody was inside and couldn't really talk to each other. But now we outside without no mask, and now we have Twitter Spaces. Twitter Spaces by Elon Musk. But shout out to Jill. Jill's a good one.
I do want to say I love how they played Nike.
Oh yeah,
that run, because Nike was on one side saying, "Oh yeah, if you don't win or come close to winning, we're gonna drop you." And then when it came time to negotiate that contract, Nike was trying to come in like, "Hey, let's go hit it." Nah. We gonna see how this goes. That check is gonna be much bigger by the time this tournament is over, and that's exactly what happened.
It was.
And Jill was the reason for the language warning too, because Jill said, "Fuck you." She said, "Fuck you." What's the guy's name that I think you might have name dropped him already, Miguel, but he was all. Was he in Pardon the Eruption? I think he was in Pardon the Eruption on ESPN.
Tony Kornheiser.
Around the Horn.
Around the Horn. Not Pardon the Eruption. Around the Horn, when they used to have like multiple of them. Yeah.
Actually, it's two of them. The one of them was Tony Kornheiser. The other was Woody Page. That's the one that said all that.
Was it Willie Page? Yeah. Willie Page. He had that on his chest. Yeah. He was like, "She's not interested. She's out of shape. She cares more about her jewelry." I was like, "Geez."
In a reality show, like what?
he talks like he's sleeping next to her every night. I'm like, God damn, like, how you know all this?
Maybe some people I feel that way about Djokovic because I don't sleep next to him, but I have my opinions. Hey, I just go off what you show me, and to a degree, I understand media having their opinions or just going off what you show me. But back then, I think things were done with a lot less context than they are now. So
the shit that Novak has done is far more flagrant.
Oh Lord, I shouldn't open up that door for you.
I'm box for that. But I'm just gonna say that the shit that Novak has done throughout the years has been far more flagrant from a moral standpoint than anything Serena's done. And I'm gonna
would agree. From speaking of a moral standpoint, I think this is a good segue to talk about kind of the morality of Serena and what she kind of had to process while being on tour, because a big thing after the death of her sister, of course she was dealing with that injury, but after she kind of like she said herself, she cut a 12-month injury into a 6-month injury, in part due to that horrible thing of losing her sister. She got right back on the tour. She won the Miami Open in 2004, but after that the results were kind of iffy in 2004 comparative to 2002, 2003, right? I mean, other girls getting to quarterfinals of 3 straight majors, they love that, right? We can name them. I'll name them. I shouldn't name them, but we could. they're on tour right now. They'd love to have 3 back-to-back Grand Slam quarterfinals appearances like Serena did in 2004. However, that was not what the media was accustomed to, and she said it felt like she was playing through. I mean, she not even felt like she was playing through grief, not even stopping for a second to really, really process what was happening to her. And she also said, which was kind of mind blowing, and they showed a little snippet of it. Even when she won, her celebrations were kind of just like blah, and she literally like Yutundi was killed in 2003, September 2003. 2004 season happens in totality. Serena wins Miami and I think the Beijing Open, which are respectable tournaments, but not a Grand Slam. Literally the beginning of 2005, she wins Australia. And she's like, oh, okay. Like,
I'm good.
Like, even in the trophy, like, I mean, granted, I'm sure if you were watching that, and I'm sure if you dissected every match during that 2005 Australian Open, she wanted it. Like, it was clear, especially in the semifinal against Sharapova, she wanted it. But throughout all of that, she was dealing with a lot of stuff, mainly losing her sister off the court. So it didn't really have the same sweetness of victory that it would if she wasn't processing and dealing with all that grief. I found that fascinating. And just a little clip of her like holding the trophy, like, hey. Meanwhile, it's a whole Grand Slam.
And I'd never seen Serena play that angry before. Like,
which time?
She played when she played Sharapova in that final?
2005? No, yeah. You're mixing the 2005 semifinal with the 2007 final, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But casuals, man, casuals.
I'm thinking about the one in the episode. My bad.
No, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We still appreciate casuals in this space. They didn't go deep into the 2005 season. They kind of just did some flashbacks of it, but some of the 2005 moments were where they really, really piled on to her. And it then slowly, I mean, she loses early at 2005 Wimbledon. She loses early 2005 after being tested by Angela Haynes. Shout out to Angela Haynes, but those are two names who we know in part for what they did against Serena 2005, not so much for what they did in their whole career, respectfully. And then, we worked to 2005. Serena's obviously not playing with the same kind of fever that she once played with because of what has happened in her life. And then 2006 happens, and she says this little nugget that I think really resonated with a lot of different people, is that she almost retired. She basically did retire from tennis after losing to Daniela Hantakova in the 2006 Australian Open, where she was the defending champion. She told Venus that I'm retiring from tennis. She really was searching for why tennis was still a part of her life. And the record reflects 2006. I don't know if she played between Australia and summer.
Yeah, she didn't play again till the U.S. Open series.
And that's where I come in. That is where Miles gets tuned into tennis, which I feel like I don't know which angel of mine was on my shoulder at the time and like was telling me to watch ESPN that day. But the timing of that is not lost on me because I didn't know all of that stuff about Serena, quote unquote, being. I mean, granted, like Serena did say that she felt she was bullied for her body, but she felt like, she's a black woman with curves. She said, I don't know if y'all caught this, but she said she's a black woman with curves and a small waist. I was like, girl.
She said a big ass and a small waist.
She said a big ass and a small waist. Like, girl, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. But in 2006, she may have been a skew off, just a skew off, a smidge from what was like, her peak. I'm gonna give it to her though, because she is a woman with a small waist and a fat ass, and we love it. We appreciate black women in all shapes and sizes, but the media at that time didn't. So for her to really get that scrutiny was crazy, but I'm glad I missed it because the Serena Williams first match, or really first tennis match I watched at all, was U.S. Open Series 2006 against Yankovic in Los Angeles. And I was like, who the hell is this?
Oh,
Where's she been at? I've told this story before. If you're not new to tuning to tennis, I've told this story before, like when I found tennis. But I was like, who the hell is this? And why is she so cool?
that is
And
an interesting time to join in.
it was at the beginning of when people were like really, really starting to count her out because she had been losing to she hadn't been playing or she was losing to people that she just normally wouldn't have, and that's where I walked in. So you know what, Ty, when you asked me before, was it your fault that she lost against Tomjanovic or my fault? I'm still gonna go with you because clearly I am the reason that our Serena 2.0 happened. It was me. She was missing my fandom. That's what it is.
Yeah, I remember that's when I started to really get into it, because I tell people I fell in love with tennis in 08 when Roger and Rafa played in that Wimbledon final. But before then, the only thing I watched, tennis related, was Serena. So yeah, just to see her come back and do what she did in 07 was just, in my opinion, remarkable. So
before we get to 07, that's I wanted to kind of segue into this when we're talking about morality, but a big chunk of the episode talked about Serena's trip to Africa, specifically Ghana, right? It was Ghana?
Yeah.
Ghana, Africa, before she embarked on the 2007 season. See, Miguel, you trying to get us to 2007 so bad? We're going to get there, though. First of all, I'm not going to say like it was news to me, but I don't think I knew that Serena went to Africa at that moment. Like, what was it? No, October, November, or somewhere fall of 2006. And she said just how much that trip was impactful to her career and kind of gave her perspective and made her grateful for just having a life. Because I mean, here are kids that are used to having to do math, like she said, in the ground using sticks and stuff like that, and she got to probably fly there, not economy, so, and it connected her. That's why we got the title of the episode, Point of No Return, because she was actually able to go to some of the slave like the dungeon quarters, or where they would prepare the slaves to be unfortunately shipped off to either America or different islands and stuff like that when slavery was happening. And there was a phrase over like one of the entrances or maybe exits that said Point of No Return. And I think that put into perspective for all of her sisters just how grateful they are, and it tapped into the strength Serena needed to revamp her career and find the fire again, because she couldn't understand, like she said, how another human could do that to another human, basically based off the color of their skin, and only literally the strong survived that era. Literally, like if you weren't strong enough to be held in a place with unfathomable issues just because of where you're from and your race, I'm sure her little tennis racket felt, her issues on the tennis court and having to deal with all of that felt so small. How did I see you nodding your head, Ty? What you thinking?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I had seen photos of her in that like long white with the children before.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't remember specifically that she had went at that time. But I think one of the things they point out most of that session was, of course, hearing like the story about the what they saw, seeing the barracks and stuff, and seeing that sign of Point of No Return. And I just really just thought about how the way they've been pulling the titles of each of these episodes have been really amazing, because where they pull them from within the story just fit so well with the story that they telling at that moment. It was kind of amazing. From the very beginning with the Out of the Shadows, was from a news clip of like a ESPN anchor saying that she came out the shadow of Venus, and then this one being from that sign, and Lindrea saying it in the thing. So yeah, that was it's amazing part of the episode to learn how that motivated her. Yeah.
And good editing too, because like the graphics and stuff that you see to kind of get us from scene to scene is really good and well thought out, and just kind of keeps you drawn into the moment. Let's get to 2007, shall we? Because clearly Miguel wants us to get there, and it's fine. What a time! And that I promise you,
I did want to add a point about just how important perspective is, and how moments like that, going out and seeing the world and seeing that everything ain't about me. I'm not the center of the universe. There's actually people out here living a completely and totally different life and lifestyle than me, can always give you a different perspective and just help you see the world differently and give you, I guess, a different kind of motivation. So that's it.
Shit ain't sweet. Yeah, shit is not always sweet. I mean, even she probably thought that, like, damn, I haven't won a major in a while. They talking about my weight and how interested I am, and she goes to Africa and see people that have totally different problems that, in her context are much worse than me and my little tennis racket, or me, quote unquote, being out of shape or whatever. Like that is so irrelevant in their minds, but this is this huge thing in mine. Let me try to, shift focus. I thought that was beautiful. I mean, obviously I'm partial because I'm black. All of us here are black, and we know of which we've came, but that was a very, very powerful part of the episode. And I'm so glad they spent some time talking about how much that impacted Serena. Another thing that impacted Serena was the 2007 season, specifically the beginning. So let's, do I have pictures? I feel like I had added a picture or a picture of literally the Hobart, Australia on a map, because a lot of stuff happened in Hobart, Australia. Actually, not enough happened, but actually a lot happened in Hobart, Australia. So Serena goes to Hobart to specifically train before the 2007 Australian Open. Mind you, 2006, she may have played 3 or 4 tournaments their entire season. She had dropped down to a low somewhere between 80 and 90 in the WTA rankings, far, far away from where she once was. She really wasn't in anybody's contention to be a Grand Slam champion. And she goes to Hobart to train and loses to Sybil Bammer. If there's any Sybil Bammer fans watching or know what Sybil Bammer and her game looked like, please speak up. I know who she was, but I have a feeling that Serena at the time was like, I should be able to beat her. And she said as much, because when she lost eventually to Sybil Bammer, she was like, well, now how am I supposed to do this thing if I can't even beat Sybil Bammer? No shade, respect to Sybil Bammer, but that was, I think, for a lot of people, even though it was early on in the season, that felt like the lowest of the low. And is she ever going to be able to really get back to Serena Williams level after losing to Sybil Bammer at what we now call the WTA 250? Why you made that face, Miguel?
I'm looking up Sybil Bammer.
You don't know who she is.
No, I know who she is, but
the episode was the first time hearing.
I'm just trying to see if she has fans. That's what I'm trying to see.
I think, Twitter wasn't alive when Sybil Bammer was in her prime years, but I'm sure there.
Yeah, that one would have turned a lot of them into what we see as Ego fans now. So, yeah.
No comment.
I think the thing is, I believe, because I've been around a little while, so I had days back on Tennis Forum and all of that. But from what I know is that she's the only person that Serena has played twice and has not gotten a win. I think it's literally 0-2. Sybil Bammer has the both wins and they head to head. So
the second win was in 2009 Cincinnati.
I don't remember where the second win was from. Yeah. But I feel like it was a messy match. Whatever.
I feel like it was 09. B Quacky, shout out to B Quacky for always supporting. He said she was a random who beat Serena twice. My tennis brain tells me that it was somewhere in 2009 where Serena Williams, she wasn't really prioritizing them WTA tour events like that.
Yeah, she only played the slams in them years. I wonder if she's gonna mention that.
Oh, I mean, this where we left this episode off does set us up nicely for 0809 into that. So I'm sure.
Yeah, it was August 19. I mean August of 2009.
Yeah, it's probably
which is
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Yeah, yes. B Quacky said she wore a yellow kit when she lost it. I remember that it was the 3/4 sleeve. She had like the fro with the head with the curly fro with some highlights in it. Yeah, that was a messy match. I was like, what are we doing? I thought we had grown from this. Anyway, Serena goes back to the drawing board after that Sybil Bammer loss, 2007 Hobart. She talks about how she just, spends a lot of time with herself, sprinting, doing calisthenics, just anything that she can think of to kind of get out of this rut and make herself better. And then we segue to Melbourne 2007, which to me is a very, very special tournament because it was the first Grand Slam that I watched from beginning to end. Like I had been introduced to tennis. I had been introduced to Serena via 2006 U.S. Open Series and kind of watched the U.S. Open that followed. But I was like, okay, but 2007 rolled around. And I was like, I'm gonna dive into this, and they take us through the journey every single round of Serena fighting back and fighting through the odds. She came into that tournament unseeded, and eventually left as one of only 4 women at the time to win a championship, being unseeded. But round by round, she got better, and it wasn't without hurdles, because literally she told us how awkward and disgusting her blisters were with almost every match that she played.
Which
I guess it was.
Know.
Yeah, I don't think I knew that either at the time. Like. And that seems to be a trend in her career, which I'm sure we'll talk to as this series continues. But she said after her second round match, going into her third round match with Nadia Petrova, who at that point was coming off the season of her career in 2006. I think Petrova was like a top 5 seed, and by all accounts should have won that match and won the first set, smoking Serena 6-1. On top of that,
5-3 in the second.
Was up 5-3, and Serena had blisters. She was not anywhere near her form. But Ty, do you remember what Venus told her that she said in the episode?
Watch the ball, or keep your eye on the ball, something like that, right?
She said just watch the ball. And Serena walked us through that match against Nadia Petrova, which is a great match if you are ever on YouTube or bored and want to rewatch one of Serena's best comebacks. But Serena was down a set in 5-3 and easily could have packed up her entire Australian Open campaign. But like Venus told her, she kept looking at the ball, and she said that was one of the few times, I think she's lying or not telling us the whole truth, but she said that was one of the few times in her career where she felt like she wasn't going to lose that match, even though she was in a very precarious situation. She kept doing what she had to do. Now, they framed that as a tennis junkie. They framed that as Serena Williams, really igniting the fire within her. But a tennis fan in me knew who she was playing, and Nadia Petrova was never going to make that match easy because she was known as a head case throughout her career. Yeah, she. Not taken away from how hard Serena had to dig into that match, but the perfect storm was Nadia Petrova, because she never won big matches like that, because she just she always would get into her head. However, Serena won that match, and I don't want to say the rest was history because there were still obstacles to climb.
Some matches the rest of that tournament.
The next match was one of her best of the tournament against Jelena Jankovic, though.
That was the more shocking one, that she beat Jankovic that easy at that time. But that Sharapova match, that was a match. That was a dramatic ass match. I think I got them all on VHS somewhere.
Somewhere.
I got them on VHS. But that was a dramatic match.
She said, that's what I was talking about earlier, Miguel, asking you if you had found your essential oils and a towel to get your steam on, because Serena had to do that throughout that tournament because she was not only dealing with blisters, she had felt ill and was trying to just breathe right. And luckily the hotel she was staying at had like a kitchen so she could, do her own at-home remedies. Miguel, I'm gonna shoot this back to you. When they were describing and walking through Serena's journey through that 2007 Australian Open. Outside of the final, what stuck out to you?
I think for me was, like I said earlier, how the tone changed from round one to the semis. It was like she can't, the way she looks, that's when she's out of shape. She's not doing what she's supposed to do. She's too focused on this. She's too focused on that. Which has been a criticism of hers pretty much throughout her career. Whenever she loses, it's just she's not focused on the sport. She's not doing what she's supposed to do. And to see how the tone went from she can't win to, oh, she might actually win this, is just like, it shows how fickle. And I know over time people are going to be very much like, Miguel is very anti-media, but it irritates me how people can just quickly change their
the media and Serena are a complicated relationship throughout her entire career, literally from beginning to end. So I'm not mad at that angle, and you bring up some good points. It's just insane to me that Nike, Nike was big in 2007, but now people have this reverence for Nike, and I do to a certain extent. Like, they have helped shape and put apparel on some of the most iconic athletes in the world, right? It is insane to me that they were ready to drop Serena after 2 bad years. I think that, like, not even 2 full bad years. She had a subpar 2005 that included a Grand Slam. In 2006, she just basically was off the tour. And by the beginning of 2007, they said, "Mama, look, if you don't do well, we're gonna cut you." In hindsight, that would have been the stupidest decision they ever made in their life.
Well, Miles,
what?
Look at the standard then versus the standard now. Look how many athletes Nike has signed just on the tennis tour that barely scrape a semi out of 500.
You're not lying.
That are still signed to Nike and are kind of high priority when it comes to kits and all that stuff like that at the majors and all that stuff like that. And I'm watching one.
I was just about to say, Miguel, I think you just talked about somebody who's literally playing right now. Oh no, Francis Tiafoe is in a 3-set match against a clay quarter from Colombia.
Yeah,
Daniel Galan.
Yeah,
woo! And he signed to Nike, and also that sniffed the semifinals of an ATP 500.
Yeah. And I watched Francis lose comfortably on Friday Night Live. I watched him from the second row lose comfortably. So again,
pause. If you're watching this back, we do not hate Francis Tiafoe.
We love Francis.
We love Francis Tiafoe. We support him, but he is making it very tough.
Yeah.
he's making it tough.
So again, the standard then versus the standard now is completely different. Like, completely different.
And it's not, they didn't say this, but back in that time, they had Maria Sharapova, who we're about to segue into. She was a number 1 seed. They had Daniela Hantakova, who had beaten Serena at the Australian Open prior in 2006. That's probably where they felt their money was going to come from, not some quote unquote washed up whale, to quote the Australian media, like Serena, who had won more titles than both of those women combined at that point. But what do we know, right? Anyway,
and also her deal with Nike was not that old at the time either.
She started her first
Nike to 04.
04. And in that time, from 04 to 2007, she had been to a Wimbledon final and won the Australian Open. And you mean to tell me by the 2007 Australian Open you was done? What do you mean?
Which I guess in their eyes, they was like, you done only won 1 slam since you've been with us, and you won 5 before. But
I guess knowing what we know now, that 1 slam is enough to keep the girls for a while.
Yeah,
I guess back then it wasn't.
It's all about the standard, and like I said, because I'm sure they weren't just handing out contracts to any and everybody back then.
I mean, to your point, like I'm pretty sure Francis now is not even getting paid
Oh,
what
hell
Serena.
no. Hell no.
Mike was getting paid at 07, honestly, but I'm not sure.
You said who?
Francis.
Oh, Francis.
I'll ask him. I don't know.
Not you gonna
I think
ask.
Francis. I think Francis is still. I mean, he's still wearing Nike's clothes, and they do a good job of making sure he gets somewhat exclusive kits. But
Yeah.
there's an argument there. If we put Serena's accomplishments, I mean, obviously Serena's accomplishments are greater than a lot of people's, right? But if we put just Serena's accomplishments from when she started with from 04 to 07 to Francis, where he been with Nike this whole time, it is still greater than Francis. And then I haven't heard no information about them dropping Francis. So, you know.
But
hey.
wait. If we're talking like active players on the tour, not named Carlos Alcaraz, who is Nike's biggest tennis athlete? And not named Carlos Alcaraz and Naomi Osaka.
Oh, I was gonna say Naomi, but it's just that Naomi hasn't currently, like in tennis terms, she's just tennis is very what have you done for us lately? She hasn't done much lately, but the star power is there. It's there. Outside of those two, maybe Raducanu, maybe.
Get him out of here.
As far as celebrity, emphasis on celebrity, athlete. That's what I'm talking about.
It's Francis. I wouldn't put Emma Raducanu above Sabalenka, because Sabalenka's signed to Nike still, right?
She is, and so is Yannick Sinner.
But as far as marketability, I think Yannick might get up there if he wins a couple more. But I still think
it stays healthy.
Yeah, I think their biggest athletes, like I said, outside of ones that have won majors, is Francis, which is crazy.
Well, more power to Francis as he competes in the Washington, D.C. tournament right now. More power to him.
I want him to win just like Steph Curry want him to win.
We'll probably be wrapping up this episode, and I'll go to Tennis Channel to support him, but fingers crossed, my brother. Fingers crossed. Anywho, we do know who Nike thought was their marketable athlete in 2007, and her name is Maria Sharapova. Serena said in the episode that Sharapova, I mean, they built up that final that they played in 2007 as two of the most fierce and competitive athletes in women's tennis at the time. And there were some people, they were right. They're probably still right. They played in, well, never mind. I'll leave that alone. That match was supposed to be a all-out, drag-out fight. And Sharapova was number one seed, and she was going to lead that tournament as world number one. I feel like Serena had a lot of respect for it, and she said her game plan was to go out there, play aggressive, and play free. And I'm venture to say she probably even surprised herself, especially with how she started. They already had a language warning on the episode, so I can say this comfortably. She beat the hell out of Sharapova. She actually whooped her ass. And that wasn't the only time.
It was not the only time, but I think at that point it was definitely very significant. Their head-to-head was tied 2-2 going into that match. And their last match was 2 years prior, where Sharapova had 3 match points, right? So that, I just rewatching that, even though I've seen that particular match so many times, but once you paint it in the context in which this episode laid it out, then the way that Serena went out there and beat Sharapova ass that day, that is amazing. Like, that is amazing. Like, that's one of the most amazing sports beats ever.
It is, and it's one of the proudest victories I think Serena can hang her hat on. And she said something to the effect of that, because she wasn't supposed to win that match. And very few people put her as the winner. Very few people had her in the final at that. But once she got to the final and faced Sharapova, mind you, Sharapova had just won the last Grand Slam that was played at the U.S. Open in 2006. She was the player to beat outside of maybe Justine Ina and maybe Murezno at the time, right?
Henin wasn't even in the tournament.
And it was not in the tournament. Murezno had lost to Vaitasova, actually, who Serena beat in the semis. I think. Hold Who did Maresmo lose? No, I take that back. Maresmo lost to Lucy Safarova at that 2007 Australian Open. I know this because that was the first Grand Slam I watched from beginning to end. That is a great match. There needs to be a particular streaming service that keeps that match in rotation for all time and all eternity. If you and I'm in this from multiple angles too. If you ever want to know how to be focused and determined in a tennis match, watch that match. If you ever want to know how to serve in tennis, watch that match. If you ever want to know how to turn defense into offense, watch that match. If you ever wait, what?
I said, what did Dick Enberg say? He said, this display of omnipotence.
Omnipotence. It was like, I'm even surprised to this day that Sharapova got the games that she got, and the ones that she won, she basically had to hit Serena.
That's one of my favorite gifts, by the way.
Yes, when Serena turns around and says what she says, I think it rhymed with which. Not quite sure. It may have rhymed with which. I'm not sure. But yeah, Sharapova got thoroughly beat off the court that day, and what made that moment even sweeter, outside of the fact that Serena had proven all the naysayers wrong about her weight and determination and responsibility in the game, she wrote a letter to herself, and she read some of that letter in the episode about how much she wanted this and how much she needed this, and ultimately how much she was playing for Yetundi to come full circle. Ooh. To have gone through everything that she had gone through from 2003 to 2007 and literally holding the trophy, dedicating that to her sister was just icing on the cake. Proved everybody wrong and won a major title for your sister. Iconic. What else do you say after that? What else do you say after that? And then what really puts that match and that tournament up a notch for me is that after those years where like things weren't going well, Serena could have had every right to hang up the racket.
Absolutely.
She was already a Hall of Famer. She had won Wimbledon twice. She had won the US Open twice. She had won the French Open and Australia. Just that alone, and been world number one. And won Olympic doubles gold medal with her sister, all of the time, all by 2003. By the end of 2003, she had accomplished all of that, right? She could have just been like, well, that was my tennis career. She said at the very beginning of this episode, in 10 years, her life had changed. Think about 1993 when she was just kind of coming on and getting ready to turn professional to 2003. 10 years, her life had changed and she was known globally as Serena Williams. She could have been like, well, that was the time I invested in the sport and quit it. And like she said in the episode, little did she know that 2007 Australian Open was just the beginning of a whole nother chapter of her career. But she literally, I mean, think about what we would have been deprived of if she had let all of that stuff that happened to her and said about her stop her from playing tennis. We would have been deprived of some even more amazing moments that we got in her career. And I feel like that 2007 Australian Open just solidifies and culminates all of that together perfectly.
But that's what, in my opinion, like separates her from, the other greats. Like, and I'm not just talking like, I think that puts her like in God tier of athletes, the Bradys, the LeBrons, because it was sustained success, not just over a 4 or 5 year peak. I'm talking about great from start to finish. Now, great doesn't mean you're going to win every match. It doesn't mean you're going to win every tournament, not every major. But you were literally like great from start to finish. Not too many people can say that. Listen here, Miles, stop.
I just wanted to know how Brady got in this, but that's all. That's all.
I'm just
I think she's
saying.
above them, but
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not arguing greatest athletes.
What you said was 100% correct. I just don't know how Tom Brady got into it, but okay.
I'm not arguing who's the greatest athlete of all time because, in my opinion, it is her. I'm just saying, as far as career trajectory and a career sustained of just start to finish greatness, it's only maybe 5 I can name.
And we're only 3 episodes in, and we're talking about it like this. There's literally more to come. But go ahead, Ty.
In my opinion, I don't even think the second act of her career has even really launched yet.
It hasn't. At 2007 Australian Open, we hadn't. She said that was Serena 2.0, but we know now. We're in 2024. How many evolutions of how many evolutions of Serena have happened, and it's a beautiful thing. What were you going to say, Ty?
15 more years of her career left. 15 more years. She didn't retire in 2022, and we're talking about 2007. At that time, she had what? 7 slams. Come on.
I think that was her 8th, actually.
8 slams.
I think that was her 8th.
And at that point, let's get greedy. Let's get greedy. Let's see if we can really turn this up.
I actually think I think that's kind of what that inspired. She was like, "Hold up now, yes, she walked us through the process of how deep she had to dig to get there." But she still left that tournament realistically 14, 15 in the world, top 20, which is great, but we know that's not where she wants to be. So it showed how good she can be under excruciating circumstances, like multiple what are those things called again? I was going to say pimples, but they're not pimples. Blisters, multiple blisters, being sick, not necessarily being in the peak physical condition, still winning one of the biggest titles you can in tennis, and not being done.
Beating the number 1 player in the world, only giving them 3 games.
For a lot of different players, put the players that have won. I'm being respectful, but put some of the players that have won 1 Grand Slam in that position: Flavia Pennetta, Marion Bartoli, Sam Stosur. Had that situation happened to them, or some of the things that happened to Serena happened to them, I'm not so sure we would even be mentioning them the way I just mentioned them as 1 slam wonders. They would have dropped that 2007 moment would have been completely fine to hang their hat on. And for Serena Williams, hopefully in episodes that we'll see to come, it's only the beginning. That's how she ends this episode, saying this is only the beginning after having gone through all of those things she did in that pocket of years from 2003 to 2007. She found a way to get back on top and make the girls scared again. Because remember what Mary Jo Fernandez said? The intimidation factor is kind of gone. Well, it's back again.
That was the point of no return.
That was the point of no return. I think she knew she was already Serena Williams. She was already a Hall of Fame champion. But doing that was okay, hold up now. This is I got something special. To be able to be so close to losing a match like she would have lost to Nadia Petrova, that would have been the 3rd round exit at a slam as an unseeded player. For anybody else, it would have been hey, that's where I should have lost. And to be so close to losing and come out on the winning side and beating the people that she did, the way she did it, man, I've been thinking about doing a YouTube series. Don't nobody in the tennis land steal this idea, because if you start doing content like this, I'll know you got it from me. I've been thinking about ranking some of her best moments and making a series out of that. I can say now, without having actually done the research for that, that's got to be somewhere in her top 5. Gotta be, and probably not 5. Probably not 5. Would you say, Miguel?
The 07 final?
The tournament, but yes, the 07 final.
Yeah,
it got to be top 5.
I mean, because
what else is competing with it other than the Serena slams?
The Serena Slam period, right? I think that's a huge accomplishment. I think the second one was huge too, because it wasn't. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We're supposed to be talking about this episode in particular, and all of that will be documented in the arena by Serena Williams, because we got a lot to buckle up on. This only episode 3.
I do think one thing while we're still talking about this '07 in this final, I actually really appreciated how they have handled this Sharapova rivalry. Because like at the end of the day, like yes, that Wimbledon 2004 match was like that was in the scheme of things was important for Sharapova, right? But that match wasn't important for Serena in the scheme of her career. And so to be able to this that '07 final was the one that really like changed the trajectory of this rivalry. And I also think it was interesting because we all, as Serena fans, knew that she probably said, "I ain't never, ever, 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 ever losing to her again." But to finally hear her say, "Oh, I ain't never, ever, ever, ever losing to her again," like I just think that was big for to actually finally hear her say that because we all knew that's what she had been thinking since
She
'04.
played like it. She played like it, and then to hear her say, "Yeah."
It's the equivalent to the Michael Jordan, and I took that personal. Like it's that, and literally when she said that, I said, "Yeah, this is the moment." And we're only 3 episodes in. I'm sure there's more instances of Serena making comments because I know if you want something that you can clip or meme, that right there is the one.
She said she swore for God. She would never, ever, 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 ever lose to her again. I just wonder where she said that because she didn't say specifically where she said it. Was it after Wimbledon or was it after Sharapova beat her again in Los Angeles? I'm not sure.
That's what I was going to say because even when you look at that, even when you look at that interview and when she said that, she was wearing different clothing than she did any other interview at this time. So I don't know if they like have another section when they was talking about that, if it's gonna come up later or just in how they edit it. But she probably didn't want to lose to her in LA either. But if she got hurt in that match,
she got hurt,
in finals. But yeah.
Speaking of that, before we wrap up, because we've already gone over time, which I feel like is going to be a trend when Serena fans get together and talk about her docuseries, but it is what it is. I'll deal with editing and all that on the back end. It's fine. What are some things that you feel like during this time frame, 2000 in middle 2003 to beginning 2007, that you feel like they left out that you would have liked to see them talk about?
That Wimbledon final?
Yeah, they did kind of skirt over it. Like they did.
Because I feel like that I would have loved, honestly, I would love if there was a singular episode about her rivalry with Maria Sharapova. Like
there might be. I hope.
I would love that.
I hope this instance isn't. I mean, this is maybe giving too much credit to Sharapova, which Ty, I know you feel a certain type of way, but unfortunately, the reality is her matchups. Yeah, her matchups with Serena Sharapova continue to like go throughout her career. So if this is the only time they mention Sharapova, it would kind of just be like, well, that's not in reality.
They got to mention at the Olympics, like
and the fact, and I mean, again, we talking way ahead of time, but this is all in hindsight. We know this, but the time that she won the French Open after 11 years, winning it the first time, like that was against Sharapova. Sharapova is going to come up again in this docuseries. I'd actually be surprised if she didn't. So that's a good call out, Miguel. That 2004.
That's like no mention of, like if they did 10 episodes with Federer, and not mentioning Rafa or not mentioning Novak. Like you can't tell, well, you can not mention Novak, but you can't tell the story of Roger without Rafa. You can't tell this, and vice versa. You can't tell the story of Serena without.
I feel like
a smidge of a bit about Maria.
Okay, as long as you put that in the context, because you can't tell the career of Serena Williams without mentioning Sharapova, but you'd be doing a disservice to the full story of Serena if you don't mention her at all, which is what I feel like this docuseries is doing, is putting all of her accomplishments into the forefront the way that she wants it to be. and then in
I'm just thinking
transparency, and
about,
you gotta add Sharapova into that.
yeah, I'm just thinking about like not just on the court. I'm talking about the stuff Sharapova
Mhm.
said about her off the court
All of
too.
that,
Yeah.
all of that, yeah.
If I'm being honest, if I'm Serena, hey, we got some shit to talk about.
But now it's water under the bridge. They're both
pieced it up,
parents, and
but
it seems like they've mended fences. Yeah.
Yeah, they've pieced it up, but I'm just saying, like, and it's no animosity, but it's just like, hey, we have some stuff to talk about because hey, you said all that back then, like,
Mhm.
and I mean, it can also be a story of growth because some people, me being one, probably wouldn't have been so forgiving.
Mhm.
So especially with the stuff she said, calling her ape and all that stuff like that. Yeah.
Yikes.
So
I don't think I know anything about that.
she compared her to something in that book.
Oh, she did say she was intimidating, but
compared her to something in that book. But yeah, it's just I wouldn't have been so forgiving of that. So
Ty, what do you shouts out to growth. Ty, what do you think they skirted past that you would have liked to see more talk about in that time frame?
It aligns with this episode, but I feel like it's been missing throughout the entire series, actually. So I'm gonna be interested to see if they touch on it later. But they really haven't talked about any of the on-court incidents yet. Like they haven't talked about Indian Wells. They haven't talked about the line calls at the US Open. They didn't talk about the hand with Justine Henin. So I don't know if they like saving it all for maybe that 09 US Open, because that was probably the biggest one, or something like that. But I'm surprised they haven't really touched on all of that yet. So I'd be interested to see if that's like all together or if they just gonna skip right over it. Because it's her story.
Maybe I mean Serena. I was gonna say Serena is helping to produce this, and she probably I wouldn't blame her if she felt like all of that stuff has been talked about ad nauseum. This is my career and the highlights of it. We're not going back to how they wronged me, or we're not going to sit in how they wronged me. We're going to talk about how I won in spite of that. So
I was going to say that if there's anything I wouldn't mind them omitting, it would be that, because we know what happened. It is what it is. Ain't no coming back from it. Or there's no, making it better.
You can't change it. You can't.
So it just is what it is. It happened, and we're just gonna leave it there. They talked about the racism and stuff like that lightly, but hey, we just gonna keep it pushing.
But I think for me, two things. One, some of her instances have led to significant changes in the sport. Like
I would agree.
That 04 US Open match led to electronic line calling being added to tennis.
Yeah.
The thing that happened in the US Open 2018, that probably kind of led to coaching being
added to the sport,
added at the slams. And then I think for me, something about the story of both Venus and Serena is the switch in the crowds. Because even earlier, in episode 1, she was talking about how the crowds would be cheering against them and stuff like that. To go from the crowds are cheering against you at the US Open when you playing a Belgium to the crowds are so loud in defense of you in 2018 and 2019 and all of that. I think that's just like a dynamic I would love to hear. I would just love to hear her perspective on that. Like when that switch happened for her in
that's
her
a shift in the culture. That's a shift in the culture.
Come on, culture.
I think the fans back then were a little more prudish. As Tyler Perry would say, highbrow.
I knew you were going to work this into this conversation in some way. I knew you were.
And that's crazy. That's off the top of the dome. I did not have that one.
Or they didn't have a formal education.
Or they had a formal education, but they were still racist. It could be a wide variety of things.
Ooh, Martina. I wonder if Martina Hingis is watching this, or if she watched the last episode, because did not put her in a good light.
It did not. So
that got to be when Serena said them comments though after that, because that feels like an appropriate time to say. to say she didn't have a formal education.
I think we are in a very I enjoy the timeline of which this series is going. I enjoy the fact that I think we're recording this live on Tuesday, July 30th. I think tomorrow, I think actually at midnight. So tomorrow, Wednesday, is when the episode 4 is going to drop. If you're watching this and you have access to ESPN Plus, you're doing yourself a favor by being able to get access to In the Arena, Serena Williams. If you're watching us talk right now or watching us back and you don't have access to ESPN Plus, you're doing yourself a disservice. But I do think ESPN, the linear original channel, is airing the episodes back like the week afterwards. So I think like we're at episode 3. I think somewhere in this week they'll be airing episode 2 to try to like help promote people to get ESPN Plus and see the episodes as soon as they drop. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I do know I got an ESPN notification that said In the Arena, Serena Williams is airing on ESPN, like just regular ESPN. So they are trying to show it to people who don't have ESPN Plus, but we all of us here do, and we can't wait until the episodes drop. I can't wait to see what happens in episode 4. Marcus is in the comments. Shout out to Marcus for engaging with us. Marcus says that's correct. So yeah, ESPN is going to be where you can find all of what we're talking about and engage with it. I think this is so far beautifully done. I can't wait to see what happens. And before we sign off, I just want to thank you, Ty, for helping us through this episode. I appreciate you. I know you have a lot going on and coming on to talk about Serena Williams, who's I'm pretty sure Serena is at the core of why we know each other. Tennis is at the core, which I appreciate. I appreciate that. And Miguel, thank you for hopping back on the train with me while we go through the career of Serena Williams. Anything y'all want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, bring me back in a couple of weeks. Bring me back about episode 6, episode 7. I have some time then.
Okay, all right. I know school's starting, so you got a lot on your plate. What about you, Miguel? Anything you want to send us out with?
No, actually.
You don't have something from the soundboard? No, never mind. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Are they going to hit on Serena's rap career?
Oh God, please don't. Jesus.
In her rap song that she made in this series. That's what I want to know.
Thank you, Miles. Don't.
I didn't know she. Never mind.
I do that the same way I do.
You did see. I don't when they were introducing Jill Smaller. You see how they peeped that picture they took on the set of Beyonce's "Sorry" video that Serena was in. I peeped that. I was like, look at Jill rubbing shoulders with Serena and Beyonce. I know that's right. I know that's right.
I can't think of the name of the song now, but I know it started like, wait a minute now.
Nah,
Serena got a song, a rap.
I don't need that. I don't need that
there
at all.
If you want to go look that up, more power to you.
Somebody tweet Miles this song. I know somebody got it.
And while you do that, look up Kobe Bryant and Tyra Banks song too.
Miles, you definitely lose some tune in to Serena points if you don't know about this rap song.
I know a bunch of the songs she was mentioned in. I just didn't know that she herself.
She has a song she released in like 2010. That's
what
she was on her little hiatus in 2010 after she got that cut on her foot. She released a song.
You know, now that you say that, I'm interested to see if we get any backstory to how she really got that cut on her foot and what song was playing, because that was also post Wimbledon, which led to a significant time away from the court, as did 2003 did. From the window to the wall. I know she was getting it. I know she was living her best life. Anyway, we have floated into the segment of Serena's career that I didn't think we would. Anyway, thank y'all for listening and engaging with this episode of our In the Arena Serena Williams series. If you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to Tune Into Tennis, like this video, share it with your friends. If you're engaging on Twitter, make sure to interact with me on Twitter for the rest of the season. We're in the Olympics right now. US Open is coming up soon. There's a lot to talk about in tennis and a lot to be tuned into, so don't be afraid to engage. This is how me and Ty and Miguel have formed the relationships that we have through tennis and being tuned in together. So it's a beautiful thing. If you're not a part of the community, feel free to join on in. It's free. So there's that. And with that, I think we can call this a wrap. Sign on out of here, and I will see y'all on the next episode. Thank y'all for watching, and take care. Until next time. Bye, guys.